House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Rob Wittman. Congressman, give us a lay of the land here. What's going on? Because we know Democrats want to spend a lot of money. Republicans absolutely do not want to pass. So where does it stand from your perspective?
Well, I think the Speaker is going to have a very, very difficult path ahead. She is staying on track to bring the bill to the floor today. I haven't heard any of the progressives that have said that they are not going to vote for the bill, saying that they have changed their vote. You've heard, too, from Senator Manchin on the Senate side about what he will not do in a reconciliation bill, which is one of the conditions that the progressives on the House side have said that they have to have. So it's an interesting showdown that's happening between different factions within the Democrat Party. I don't know what's ultimately going to happen, but the Speaker is staying on track to bring that bill to the floor today.
I'd like to get your reaction to what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say today. Listen to this.
On government funding, what Republicans laid out all along was a clean, continuing resolution without the poison pill of a debt limit increase. That's exactly what we'll pass today. Earlier this week, the Democratic leader tried to muscle through something different through a partisan jam, but it failed. Now the government will be funded as we laid out. That's step one.
Now, you repeatedly urged Speaker Pelosi to keep Congress in session until every appropriations bill was passed. Once again, you say, you know, this is an indication that we are budgeting by crisis.
Heather, that's exactly right. Doing these continuing resolutions just kicks the can down the road. This one, which will keep government open until December 3rd, doesn't get at the decisions that we need to make as a Congress. And I don't think December 3rd will be the end of the continuing resolutions. I think there'll have to be another one, because I don't see a clear path ahead to get all of these appropriations bills done. That's why we need to stay here throughout this antiquated August recess to get this work done. You can't expect to come back into town and spend a little over a week and get all of these things done. We see what's happening now. We're at the very last minute trying to do the work of the nation that should have been done back in August.
While we have you, if we could ask you to address Afghanistan for a moment. We heard General Milley essentially admit that they lost the war in Afghanistan. Listen to this, if you would, please.
I don't think that whenever you get some phenomena like a war that is lost, and it has been, in the sense of we accomplished our strategic task of protecting America against al-Qaeda, but certainly the end state is a whole lot different than what we wanted.
So what do you think?
Well, Bob, listen, I think that's exactly what we wanted to get from General Milley. When I asked him that question about was this strategic failure based upon President Biden's direction, that was his answer. He said, yes, there was a situation where we failed strategically. The war was lost. It was not the way we needed to end up. And that indeed we saw from his answers and that of Secretary Austin that it was the decision-making of the president that led us to this particular point. We know that they recommended something different. The president did not follow that. He said that he wasn't given that information. We saw in that interview that he did. And he said that he couldn't recall. I look at it this way. If he didn't recall, that's pretty disturbing. If he was not telling the truth, that's pretty disturbing. So I know that where we ended up is not where we needed to. That chaos that ensued, that absolute horror of losing 13 service members was completely avoidable if we had withdrawn based on conditions on the ground.
But yet we have the service member who spoke out against that or just asked questions as to what happened being thrown in the brig. And then we have this breaking news story today that I'd like to get your reaction to. We're also hearing that the Marine who appeared at the Trump rally this past Saturday, Lance Corporal Hunter Clark, is reportedly now under investigation for appearing at the rally. Now, he is the Marine who was pictured lifting an infant to safety into the Kabul airport. So now he's under investigation too.
Well, listen, you shouldn't be under investigation for practicing your constitutional rights, your right to freely assemble, your right to express your opinion. Those things are all, I think, what we are as a nation, and that is the rights that we have. Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, listen, a great hero. I agree with him in his assessments. The one issue there is when he was told in his official capacity not to do that, he said, I know what the consequences are going to be, and I've chosen to do that. So he knew fully well what he was facing. Listen, I'm not certain of all the details about what the command was and whether he obeyed that command or not, but I do know this. We need to be very careful about how we are crossing over in how we treat members of the military and where their constitutional rights lay in their ability to speak freely and their ability to express themselves under the First Amendment.
Yeah.
I was curious whether you would support the infrastructure bill that passed the Senate if it got brought up at the House. Now, Nancy Pelosi is saying we're not going to bring it up until you pass our trillions of dollars that we want. But just out of curiosity, do you support the infrastructure bill that did pass the Senate?
Bob, I have deep concerns about the infrastructure bill. In its present form, I cannot support it. I do, though, support infrastructure. I support money that goes to roads, bridges, ports, airports, and broadband. We need that, but this bill has so much additional spending in it. It also creates additional taxes in areas that are not related to transportation. I want to make sure that we have a bill that is self-sustaining, and that is it has revenue sources that will continue to fund transportation, and that they're generated based on transportation usage, and that the bill is solely about funding transportation. This bill is not that. I'm in favor of transportation infrastructure funding, but I'm not in favor of this bill because of how it goes about it, and many of the parts of the bill that are unrelated to infrastructure.
Yep. All right, Congressman Rob Wittman, thank you very much for joining us.
Heather and Bob, thank you.